morning, everyone. Thank you for signing up with us. We thank you so much for your time and for being here and your patience during what has been quite a Monday. It's kind of that pressure to get you going during the day. And as how we always say, it's not a bad day, it's a bad moment. So we're here and we're excited to continue the conversations. And now we're going to be talking with representatives of MarAlliance and their megafauna conservation. And if you do not know what the word megafauna is, that's something that you will learn during this segment. So with us, we have Dr. Rachel Graham, the founder and executive director of MarAlliance, Jamal Andrew Imbon, country coordinator for MarAlliance, and Ms. Clara Sabal, research officer. Good morning, everybody. You look great.
Good morning.
I love the blue. The unity is beautiful.
We're representing the sea.
Yes.
And then you mask and everything.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah, blue is my favorite color. I was telling them that last week we were supposed to wear red on Friday, and I had a hard time picking red because I automatically gravitated to a blue shirt. So yeah, I feel the vibe here. Ren, you're outnumbered.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I like to be, the
Unique.
Yeah, unique.
Yeah,
One that stands
I love
out.
I love it.
So
We need variety.
we
Yes.
do. And
Diversity.
into the conversation because I think this is so important. I don't think we've had a conversation talking about sharks directly here on SunUP on 7. So it's a first, and I'm really appreciative of it because we have a lot of young viewers that
Excellent.
look at, and I'm talking about 5 and so forth. And I want to have them to understand the importance of protecting sharks because we just think about sharks as, some people think of a meal or some people just think about baby shark, do. And so could you start off first off with what is the importance, the value that sharks come with to preserve their life and have them in our country?
Oh, absolutely. So just a quick step back. So MarAlliance, we've been around for now just over 7 years, and our focus really is to better understand and conserve the big wildlife of the sea. So the sharks, the rays, which are their cousins, turtles, and other big fin fish. And the why, because a lot of people go, well, why? And why are they valuable? Because they are, and you're going to like this, Jamal, because Jamal works a lot with birds too. They're the canaries of the coal mine and how the sea is doing. And so it's really important to know kind of what the populations are and how they're distributed throughout Belize. And getting back to your aspect of value, they have a massive ecological value. And what does that mean? People are always like, what's the ecology mean? It means that they really are the glue that helps keep things running in the sea. And this is critical. And then on top of that, they're also worth a lot of money. And what we're finding through all of our work with, because we work primarily with fishers, but we also work with tour operators, dive guides, governments, NGOs, all the stakeholders.
Nice.
We're finding that they're worth a lot more alive than dead. And we've got some great numbers for you on that. And that is why Belize, being a major tourist destination, and people come here and they want to see, especially sharks, turtles and rays and all that, but especially sharks. And we have the opportunity to generate millions of dollars.
Wow.
Millions already just in park fees alone linked to sharks, $1.5 million a year. And that's nothing compared to what we could generate.
Yeah.
Wow.
To give you an idea, Bahamas generates $113 million a year just for shark tourism. And we have rainforests, ruins, reefs, and we have reefies as well, as I like to call them, the Caribbean reefs. So we could do very well from sharks in Belize and bolster our ecosystem. And there's another aspect too that a lot of people might not be thinking about, which is increase our resilience to climate change, because it's here.
Yeah,
And it's
definitely.
making profound changes in the sea, and you need these big wildlife to help keep that glue in the sea, keep those coral reefs healthy, keep the mangroves and seagrasses healthy, and the fish populations healthy for our fishers, and of course our food security.
Wow.
I
love
feel
it.
like you touched on so much great topics that I'm thinking that people were not even connecting the dots to. I'm like, I had a wow moment, like, he's talking about 1.5 million? What? Just for sharks?
Definitely. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's just park fees. Imagine you include all the hotel, the travel costs, the tips, the tours, everything else. And all of a sudden, you start to see the numbers from shark tourism. And you go from, we've got 4 sites right now in Belize. We could easily expand to 7 sites and have even more communities benefit from sharks, rays, and other marine megafauna.
So in that regard, what are the threats to the shark population in the country?
Do you want to share some of that?
I mean, I'm thinking overfishing, I'm thinking climate change.
Or even when people throw all the garbage and everything into the seas, like I still think about that part where, you know, these animals have to live here, they can get caught, all kind of things can happen. So could you tell us, look, what
the
are we
biggest
as
threat.
a people doing that is hindering our progress, messing up the value that sharks can provide for our country?
So, well, one of the major threats was a certain degree and still is were gill nets. So that was outlawed in late 2020 for Belize. So that is literally a catch-all. And so not just sharks, but a lot of species that are not targeted for extraction or unintentionally end up in there and most likely die. So sharks are one of many that ended up in there. Other species of megafauna, you even hear of cases of manatee ended up in there, our precious, you know, lovable, gentle manatee.
Right.
So a lot of these species are impacted by these non-selective gears that then disenfranchise not only the species but the other people that rely on these for like non-extractive purposes. So again, if you're fishing in mass all these species, there's none left for tourism, for recreational fishing, etc., for catch and release. And so it's a benefit long term and overall to have these more destructive practices regulated and phased out eventually. There isn't, you mentioned Kevin, I think you would mention the interest sometimes in people's perception of shark as something to eat.
Yeah.
So that's it's not a common practice here in Belize, thankfully, but there is a demand internationally. So there is export of shark and also illegal extraction from in the international water. So that is still a major threat on the regional scale, even if it's not a common practice here in Belize. As sharks don't necessarily respect borders. They come and go as they please, especially in our regional waters. So I'd say those are 2 of the major threats, but you also mentioned pollution, which impacts everything that occurs in those ecosystems, including sharks and the animals they rely on for consumption. So there's a lot that humans are doing poorly that impact species. So our job and the stakeholders we work with is to correct that. Sharks have been around for millions and millions of years. They're older than trees, I've seen on
Older than
multiple
dinosaurs.
posts. So they've come along a very long way, and then they hit the Anthropocene, which, you know, several thousand years ago, we start impacting and shaping the ecosystems in not necessarily the most positive of ways. So it is largely due to us that all these animals are in decline. So it's our job, our commitment to correct that, to push the scale back the other way, and do so in collaboration with the people that rely on these species, whether they know it or not.
Yeah, I feel one of the key things that MarAlliance does is, you know, bridging that gap between, or creating that bridge between people and megafauna, right? Because one of the key challenges is get people to care for nature.
Yes,
Correct.
Right.
that is.
So, can you share with us some of the initiatives that MarAlliance is doing to bridge that, to have people caring and protecting our megafauna?
Well, so what we specialize in, what our strong point in, is asking the questions and finding the data, doing the science to back it. So we can ask even the foundational questions, like something as simple as, well, how many sharks are there? You know, where are they? You know, how old are they? How long have they been in this area? So we do this again in concert with protected area managers who have a vast portfolio that they have to take care of. They have to do enforcement, education, management. So they aren't necessarily always disposed to do the research factor, which informs and guides them on whether they're doing a job well and how to make it more effective. And it's the same for our fisheries department for regulating fisheries, for tour operators to know, you know, where are the best sites and are these sites still healthy. So we look at these questions, the basic ones, and then ramp up from that. And then we can ask bigger questions once that first set of data is found. So and
I just wanted to interject with that, because a lot of these questions, just to put into context, when I started work here in Belize in '98, it was on whale sharks. So I developed a lot of the research on the whale sharks, and it was with fishers. And it's the fishers themselves who had these questions. How many are there? Where are they going? Why are they here? What are they eating? All of these that form the foundational questions, not just for whale shark work here, that then helped to generate a multi-million-dollar tourism, but the whale shark research throughout the world. So with that same approach, many of these questions come from our fisher partners. And also we have the global remit, because now 37% of shark and ray species, of which there are 1,200 species in the world, are threatened with extinction. That's how badly off we are in the shark world. Those hammerheads that sometimes you see on videos, we're down over 90% in some areas and over 99%. We have 1% left of that population.
Wow.
So it's just like Jamal said, these questions are key to answer, but it's wonderful the way that we do it and the way that we work in partnership with these different sectors and these different stakeholders, because you're asking, how do you get people to care? Well, you get them to care when they're engaged.
Yeah.
And I know Clara can talk a little bit about our methods on how we do that.
So we have 3 different methods that we use during our monitoring. So we work with our fisher partners, so they help us carry out the activities that we do. And the 3 methods include us being in the water and swimming and doing transects and doing visual censuses. We also set underwater baited remote videos. So with our GoPros, we have our fishers help with our setting, because they go down and they set the bruvs while they free dive. And that's some of the stuff that maybe we need work with, and we're glad that we have the fishers who can do stuff like that, because they're comfortable doing that thing with their conch and lobster fishing. And the last one we do is our long line catches, because we actually have to catch the sharks for us to collect the data and tag them, collect their information on their size and their sex. So we have these big 3 monitoring strategies that we compile to get an idea of the population of sharks and other megafauna in the area.
Wow.
That's so interesting.
What I'm gathering, Clara, is that you have a very good collaboration with fishers, right? So it amazes me that because I've heard like the conversation that, you know, they're focused on exploitation and just bring whatever is out there. But hearing from what you're saying is that the collaboration is there. They want to protect these species. So is that something that you find very common, that collaboration to happen?
Yeah, it's very common, because although they have this as their livelihood, they're still interested in making sure that these species, they exist in times to come, so that it can remain something that they're able to benefit from in the future as well. So although they know that resources are depleting, they want to know why, so they can help in making sure that the conservation or it's more sustainable for them.
I want to ask a little bit about facts now, because you were mentioning stuff about the questions that fishers normally ask about, you know, how many sharks. So how many sharks do we have here in Belize, and more or less, like, what kind of species do we have here too? And what are they eating too? All the questions that they were asking, like, what are they eating? They're not eating people. So like, what are they eating? So, and so I know it's a lot of questions at the same time, but also more or less, where are they more populated?
Right. Well, absolutely, all those questions. So it's really exciting, because we have had the opportunity to do what is essentially the world's first population assessment for one particular species, the nurse shark.
We have a poster.
And this is a summary poster that anybody can download off of our website, and we've also been sharing with all of our stakeholders and dive operator partners. And if you haven't received one yet, you will soon. And we're really grateful to the MAR Fund for having funded the creation of these posters. And that's what we try and do, is also convert scientific papers and all this type of studies into things that are really easy to digest.
Definitely.
And that's the number.
We can answer that question for one of the species for you. So that's the range we came up with just for nurse sharks in the entire country.
Yeah.
And you asked,
and that's the upper end.
Upper end, exactly. Yeah. And you asked where they're most populated. So this species, as you note, a good concentration of them are down in southern Belize. right? And then
Well,
obviously
in
with
the
some
atolls.
smatterings in the atolls
Atolls.
as well.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm seeing them
Atolls.
right
So what this
turn
is
off at
showing
atolls.
is that usually you actually have, as you move farther away from people, you have more sharks.
Okay.
So our atolls are actually the most important areas for sharks, and the sharks there, not just nurse sharks, but a range of other sharks. And we have about 12 reef-associated shark species that we work with: lemons and bulls and tigers and scalloped hammerhead, great hammerhead, reef sharks, nurse sharks, etc., and about 7 to 8 species of ray. And as you move away from the mainland, you have a greater abundance, but you often have a lower diversity, so fewer species. As you go from the middle of the country to the edges, the borders with Guatemala and Mexico, you also have fewer sharks. Because fishing is the biggest impactor of sharks, people are the biggest impact. And so that's why you have that kind of latitudinal distribution where you have more offshore, fewer onshore.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's also a testament, as we said, to the effectiveness of those of the atolls being managed
was
as
thinking.
protected areas. So a good example. So last year, the pandemic has impacted all aspects of life, including even research. So 2020, we weren't able to do our systematic and continuous research in those areas we typically do. So there was a pause in a sense. Last year, we were able to get back in the water. So everyone was very excited. The fishers we work with have been working on this project for years. They wanted to get back in to see if there's a change. We all assumed that maybe there was less fishing, less traffic. The animals would have kind of had a chance to repopulate in these areas. The protected area managers were eager to know if their management was well. So we can say there was a hopeful sign based on what we've seen from our data last year.
Yeah.
Clara, you want to mention?
Yeah, so we do our standardized monitoring at Turnef Atoll and Lighthouse Reef Atoll. So at Turnef Atoll, last year when we did our monitoring, we tagged 30 Caribbean reef sharks in the area. And in Lighthouse Reef Atoll, we tagged 103 sharks. So of that 103, we had 19 nurse sharks, we had 3 lemon sharks, we had 1 silky shark, and the remaining were all Caribbean reef sharks as well. So this year's monitoring is going to be very interesting because we want to see whether or not the monitoring that we did last year were the result of, the pandemic or slowing down in tourism or just fishing in general, or is it because the population is actually recuperating? So this year's monitoring is going to be very interesting, and we'll see if those numbers continue to increase or if maybe they stay the same.
And Dr. Rachel can attest to this, but this 1 year of data is a very, very small snapshot. The nurse shark study, for example, took
10 years
10 years.
Oh,
to
wow.
pull all those data
So-
together
So 10
using
years-
multiple methods.
You need years and years of consistent data to really get a picture. So on that note, you asked one of the projects we're working on. So all of the insights we've been sharing about the distribution of sharks and where they are, there was a concerted and a comprehensive effort back in 2012 to do a barrier reef wide, a nationwide assessment or survey of sharks, right? Head count, if you will. Can you think of any other big head count that's going on this year in Belize?
It's a census.
I was just going to say that.
So
The census.
our big project this year is a 2022 Shark Census.
Okay.
Coincide
lovely.
with the human census.
Wait, I'm just going to say, we're doing a human census, we're doing a shark census.
We're doing a shark
Love it.
census, that's right. Using the same methods to a certain degree that Clara shared with you, so you have to try to keep it systematic, consistent, so you can
Right.
compare. And these are the methods and the sites that Dr. Graham and the Fishers would have done 10 years ago. So it's a nice, it's in a way, it's good that they had to defer the human census because now we have that parallel to this year. So we'll be doing it, parallel to them, and by the end of the year, we'll hopefully have a stronger answer to the other species that you were
Yeah,
asking
I'm
about.
looking forward to that because it's exciting. When I hear lemon shark, I was like, what?
Yes.
Think about
These
lemon.
lesser, everyone knows the
wings.
nurse
I don't
sharks.
know about
There's
lemon
others.
sharks. So it's like there's so much that I think that people can be able to learn.
Right.
I'm wondering too as well. I know you said you're basically a year in when it comes to MarAlliance. When you've been formed, right?
Seven.
Just over 7 years.
7 years. Oh,
Yes.
oh,
Yeah.
you said a year. I heard a year for something then. But in regards to volunteers and getting that idea of education out there, because we've been talking a lot about having people understand what's happening outside of their country, and that also builds that awareness of how I can be able to do less pollution. I shouldn't talk to people about X, Y, and Z. If I have a fisherman uncle, I can tell him X, Y, and Z, and so forth. You know, you can be able to promote good behaviors for people out there. Is there education happening along the line? And also, is it open for people to come and volunteer or just to learn about what's happening?
Again, all this is usually prior to the pandemic, we have to say. You've seen a few slides of outreach. We did have very broad scale education campaigns going on with not just schools, but the tour operators, the fishing communities that the fishers work in as well. So there was, and in collaboration with NGOs. So we did do a lot of that sort of education of getting the word out there. We shifted during the pandemic to supporting school teachers and families in virtual learning. So we actually took a step back, but still worked from the periphery to provide technology to the students that needed it most. And there's a lot of need, but we provided where we could to allow them to not only access distance learning, but encourage engagement into marine-oriented learning that complements the national curricula. So we have been working with teachers to develop short, very kind of pithy and dynamic lesson plans that match up with social studies or science, but with a marine emphasis. So if they're teaching about your food webs and your food chains today, rather than talk about fox and goat or whatever, you can use shark, you can use turtle. So we've tried to work with teachers and families to get the distance learning done, but finding inlets where it's mutually beneficial to encourage, appreciation, excitement, interest in the marine world. So that's been ongoing since the start of the pandemic.
Yeah. And children make great ambassadors for conservation.
Yes, they do.
They tell you about yourself.
They do.
I love it when they do that, though.
And the message goes back to
and
their
especially
parents too.
the older demographic, your upper division going into high school, that's a good time to encourage. We ask a lot of questions. We try to encourage questioning in students, especially those that are interested in science, to look at it more as inquiry, asking multiple questions, not just get front-loaded information from teachers, but asking their own insights into what they're learning about and trying to find ways to make it accessible for them to get out and answer these questions for themselves.
And it was, just to add, it was an educational program that I started in 2011. I got an award from the Whitley Fund for Nature, and that enabled the broad outreach for sharks with late primary school children. And we created a whole cast of characters for sharks. We had Tama the whale shark, Rosita the reef shark, Nellie the nurse shark, Beto the bull shark, and all the rest. And we took that into a lot of schools, etc., and at the same time produced a wonderful documentary with Carol and Richard Foster called Where Have Our Sharks Gone? Literally, they were being fished out and taken to Guatemala as fillet, which unfortunately is still happening. And that also highlighted the fact that you don't want to eat shark because it actually accumulates a lot of methyl mercury. But who onboarded those lessons the most? It was the kids.
Yeah.
The kids, and actually women mostly. And so we've seen a huge behavioral shift. People who used to eat maybe shark panades now eat bean panades or chicken panades. And again, as Joel had mentioned, there is not a focused or targeted habit of eating shark in Belize. So that's already good, but you're seeing a mind shift and people get vexed when they see a shark being killed now versus 10 to 15 years ago.
Wow.
So we're pretty excited that we've seen the outreach and everything.
Something good is happening. Something good is getting done.
I love it.
And legislation does work. It takes a long time. It took 20 years and many people to come together to actually reach a ban on gill net so that you even out fishing effort. And then it took us 10 years to get to the point where now Lighthouse Reef Atoll is also legislated as a place where you cannot fish sharks.
Definitely.
So we're
It
excited.
takes some time, but we're getting there.
But we are getting there.
Little wins are very important to it as well. To look back and
Definitely.
be like, I mean, we're not where we want to be, but we're better than what we used to be.
Yes.
And compared to many other countries, we're doing very, very well. But I don't like to compare to, I think we can do incredibly well. Like I said, Belize is in a perfect situation to be able to make a lot of money from sharks and rays and marine megafauna as tourism encounters. And for that, one of our projects, you were asking about projects, is the creation with our stakeholder partners of a national shark tourism strategy.
There you go.
Nice.
Wow.
I love that. Because you heard that $1.5 million just for
Right.
That's just
And-
part.
but
That's just-
yeah, but
yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
the value of keeping sharks alive.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So not as food, but in keeping them alive. So, and of course, the value that they have to the ecosystem is invaluable.
And they
Understand it,
inspire
yeah.
us.
Yeah.
They inspire us. And you know what I see? I see people who are so scared. And once they get into the water, and we saw that with our Kids Meet Sharks project, they'd be, Miss, I don't want to get in the water. They get in the water and they go, oh, huge change.
Yeah.
Huge change. And they become the ambassadors. So do we take volunteers? We love students, especially if you're going to have a marine focus. They can get in touch with us at info@maralliance.org and see how we can integrate them in some of the work that we're doing.
Awesome.
And of
I
course,
love
we're
that.
expecting you,
Yes.
We'll be
I
there.
would so love
Yeah.
that, you know?
to come out and be part of this census.
All right.
I would
Yeah.
definitely was like, the Sharky, come on.
Yeah, well, we thank you so much for joining us on our couch to talk about what MarAlliance does, and of course giving us those facts about sharks. Because one thing that how we're going to be transforming this world is by bringing these conversations
Yeah,
to their
definitely.
homes, by educating people. So
I want to ask if you
yes.
guys have a Facebook page too as well, that people can
And
go
Instagram.
on. Yeah, because I really want people to be able to just like go in there if they can find like little snippets of, you know, the facts about sharks and the different types of sharks. I think that's something just key on somewhere to start is educating yourself too as well.
Absolutely.
And so I'm imploring again our viewers, and I love the on Facebook for Fast Pan People Business. How about we fast pan what happened with the sharks
Yes.
and have a
Yes.
positive note on that, because I keep going. I was like, I didn't even know they had a lemon shark. I didn't know. I'm like,
Okay.
what? So there's so many different types to see their different forms and so forth. I'm sure it's an educational thing. So all our viewers at home, go to MarAlliance. It's amazing where you can be able to be impacted, and we're looking forward for this census to come to as well and more information. I know you guys you have your hands full, but we're
Yes.
so thankful that you could be able to share this time with us to give the highlights of what's going on.
Thank you as well.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
No problem.
Right.
So with that, we go to our next commercial break. When we're back, we're going to be talking football, the Football Federation of Belize. So stay tuned for that conversation.
Volleyball?
All right, no.
You play football too?
No, I
Oh.
don't.
She represents Belize in volleyball.
Ah.
And